They say the market is a mirror, but most never realize what it's reflecting. It doesn't show you the future. It shows you yourself. Every tick, every candle, every sudden movement of price. It's not chaos. It's truth. A truth too few are ready to face. Because the hardest part of trading is not the strategy, not the charts, not the systems or setups. It's the stillness between the trades. It's the space where your patience is tested, your ego whispers, and your discipline is questioned. Most traders think discipline means control, the ability to hold back from overtrading or revenge entries. But discipline in its purest form is not control. It is surrender. It is the art of releasing the need to be right and choosing, instead, to be aligned. Long before screens glowed with candlesticks, Jesse Livermore wrote that the market never changes because human nature never changes. And human nature, that restless desire to predict, to conquer, to prove, is what every trader must transcend. Discipline is not about mastering the market. It's about mastering the mind that trades it. There's a silence behind every chart that most never hear. It's not the silence of inactivity. It's the silence of awareness. The great traders, the timeless ones, learned to hear it. Richard Dennis called it the space between impulse and action. Mark Douglas called it the zone, where thought and outcome dissolve into pure process. And though their words differed, their truth was the same. Until you learn to be at peace with uncertainty, you will forever be at war with yourself. Discipline begins not with rules, but with realization. A realization that every trade you take is a mirror of your internal state. When you chase, it's not the market you're chasing, it's validation. When you hesitate, it's not fear of loss, it's fear of not being enough. When you break your plan, it's not the setup that failed, it's your self-trust that cracked. The untold secret to trading discipline is awareness. Not the kind that watches charts, but the kind that watches you. When you sit before the market, you are not just a participant. You are both observer and observed, the creator of your own outcome. Every hesitation, every impulse, every surge of greed or flicker of doubt, all of it unfolds within you, not outside. And when you finally see that, something changes. You stop trying to fight the market and start learning from it. You stop reacting and start responding. You begin to sense what every master before you knew. That discipline is not resistance. It's alignment with rhythm. Look closer. Every candle, every wave, every retracement carries a breath-like rhythm, expansion and contraction, rise and fall, impulse and correction. The disciplined trader does not fight that rhythm. They move with it, like a surfer who waits for the right wave. They understand that missing one opportunity means nothing. For the sea is infinite, and there will always be another tide. To the undisciplined mind, patience feels like pain. To the awakened mind, patience is power. In the early days, you trade to win, you measure progress in profit. But as you evolve, something shifts. You no longer trade to win, you trade to learn. You trade to see yourself clearly. Because you begin to understand that your growth as a trader and your growth as a human are one and the same. The undisciplined trader seeks certainty in strategy. The disciplined trader finds peace in uncertainty. Because uncertainty is not chaos, it's the canvas of potential. It's the place where skill meets surrender. You will not master discipline by forcing yourself to obey rules. You will master it by understanding the mind that breaks them. Discipline is born not from punishment, but from presence. Presence, the ability to stay here, fully, without judgment, without fear, without attachment to outcome. That's what separates the gambler from the trader, the emotional from the centered, the noise from the music. Discipline is not the absence of emotion, it's the awareness of it. You cannot silence fear or greed, but you can see them for what they are, passing clouds across the stillness of your awareness. You can feel them without becoming them. You can watch the storm without stepping into it. Every great trader eventually arrives at this realization, that the goal is not to conquer emotion, but to coexist with it, to let it speak, but not dictate, to let it arise, but not control. Because when you trade with presence, you stop being a slave to reaction. You start to see how every thought, every feeling, every impulse leaves a footprint in your performance. And in that seeing, discipline emerges naturally, not as a rule, but as a reflection of balance. There's a paradox that every trader must live through to understand. The more you try to control the market, the more it controls you. The more you let go, the more you align with it. Discipline is not a cage, it's a compass. It doesn't limit you. It guides you back to center every time you drift. Think of the monks of the old world, who sat in silence for hours, watching their breath. They weren't chasing peace. They were remembering it. In the same way, a disciplined trader doesn't chase control. They return to it, over and over again, until their mind no longer reacts to the market. It responds through it. Trading, at its highest form, is meditation in motion. The charts are not just patterns. They are mirrors of your inner weather. Your greed shows up in overtrading. Your fear shows up in hesitation. Your ego shows up in revenge trades. And your lack of patience shows up in every premature exit. If you can see it, you can change it. But first, you must look, not at the market, at yourself. Because discipline is not about what you do when you win. It's about how you breathe when you lose. It's about the space between your loss and your next decision. That sacred pause where all growth is born. The secret to discipline is not willpower. It's awareness, acceptance, and alignment. Awareness of your impulses, acceptance of uncertainty, alignment with your vision. And when these three meet, something remarkable happens. You stop trying to predict the market. You begin to flow with it. You realize that trading isn't about defeating chaos. It's about finding harmony within it. You are not here to win every trade. You are here to become the kind of person who no longer needs to. When you begin to see discipline as harmony rather than control, everything changes. The charts no longer feel like battlefields. They feel like reflections of breath, expanding, contracting, flowing. The anxiety fades. The noise dims. You start to realize that the market doesn't punish or reward you. It simply reveals you. There is no enemy out there. There is only the self projected onto the screen. And that self, if you watch closely, is made of two voices. The first is loud, urgent, demanding. It shouts for action, for certainty, for movement. It fears silence because silence exposes truth. It cannot wait because waiting feels like dying. That is the voice of the ego. The trader who follows it will forever live in a storm, tossed between fear and greed, between hope and despair. The second voice is softer. It speaks not in words, but in knowing. It doesn't rush. It doesn't crave. It simply observes. It trusts the process because it has seen enough cycles to understand that all things move in rhythm, and that time, not force, births results. This is the voice of awareness. And the more you listen to it, the quieter the ego becomes. Discipline is born the moment you choose which voice to follow. You cannot silence the ego entirely, but you can choose not to obey it. You can hear its panic without reacting, its temptation without surrendering. You can become the watcher behind both, the one who sees clearly even when emotions surge. That watcher, that silent observer, is your greatest edge. It is the mind behind the mind. It is the space from which all disciplined decisions arise. In every generation, a few traders discover this secret. They stop obsessing over entry points and indicators. They stop seeking the perfect strategy. They realize the real strategy is stillness. And from that stillness, clarity emerges, like light after a storm. Jesse Livermore once said, "It was never my thinking that made big money for me. It was always my sitting." Most remember the sitting, but few understand the depth of that word. It wasn't just about patience in holding trades. It was about being still in spirit. To sit with uncertainty. To let profits unfold without interference. To trust that the market, in its infinite rhythm, will reveal its path in time. Discipline, in this sense, is faith expressed through consistency. It's faith not in outcome, but in process. Faith that the small decisions, the boring, unglamorous, everyday acts of restraint, are what compound into greatness. Look around at the world today. Everyone wants instant results, instant profit, instant success, instant mastery. But nothing timeless was ever built in haste. The pyramids took centuries. The forests grow slowly, one ring at a time. Even the stars burn for eons before their light reaches us. Why then should your mastery be any different? The disciplined trader understands that the goal is not to win fast, it's to last long, to survive the noise long enough to hear the truth beneath it, to stay calm long enough for clarity to emerge. In that patience lies power, because patience, when fused with awareness, becomes precision. And precision, not prediction, is the mark of mastery. Every undisciplined trader lives in the illusion of control. They think that if they analyze enough, tweak enough, hustle enough, they can bend the market to their will. But the disciplined trader sees deeper. They know the market is not a puzzle to solve, but a rhythm to synchronize with. And to move with rhythm, one must first learn stillness. The martial artists of old understood this well. Before they struck, they breathed. Before they moved, they became motionless. Their power came not from tension, but from centeredness. Trading is the same. Your entry is not just a click, it's the reflection of your internal balance at that moment. A chaotic mind creates chaotic trades. A centered mind executes with grace. That is why discipline is sacred. It is the bridge between chaos and clarity, between impulse and intention, between reaction and creation. When you are disciplined, you no longer chase setups. Setups find you. Because the market begins to mirror your state. The clearer you are within, the clearer the chart appears without. Every hesitation you feel, every urge to jump in early or cut profits short, those are not market signals. They are invitations to self-awareness. They are lessons disguised as discomfort. And if you can sit with them long enough, they dissolve. Discipline is not found in the absence of temptation. It's found in the presence of choice. The choice to act from clarity rather than emotion. The choice to follow your plan, not your panic. The choice to trust the process, even when the outcome wavers. Some of the greatest traders in history lost fortunes, yet emerged stronger. Why? Because their discipline was not tied to the result of a single trade. It was rooted in the integrity of their process. They could lose and remain grounded. They could win and remain humble. Their center did not move with the market. It moved with awareness. Discipline at its deepest level is integrity with yourself. It is the quiet agreement you make each morning when you sit before the charts. I will not betray my plan for momentary emotion. I will not confuse activity with progress. I will not mistake noise for signal. And then, you act from that agreement again and again, until it becomes your nature. In time, your mind changes. You no longer seek excitement in trading. You seek peace. You no longer crave adrenaline. You crave accuracy. You stop measuring your worth by your last win or loss. Because discipline transforms trading from a chase into a practice, a lifelong refinement of clarity and awareness. And just as meditation deepens with silence, trading discipline deepens with surrender. Surrender not in defeat, but in understanding. The understanding that you cannot control the market. You can only control the mind that meets it. In that understanding lies freedom. Freedom from overthinking. Freedom from fear. Freedom from the constant pull of what if. The market becomes a dance, and you, a participant in its rhythm. You learn when to move and when to wait, when to act and when to let go. And though the dance never ends, you stop needing it to. Because you've discovered something far greater than profit. You've discovered presence. Presence is the highest form of discipline. It doesn't resist the moment. It lives fully within it. It doesn't fight the loss. It learns from it. It doesn't chase the win. It flows into it. When you trade from presence, there is no noise, no fear, no future or past. There is only now, the eternal moment where decision meets awareness. And in that moment, the market ceases to be an adversary. It becomes a teacher. A silent, patient, infinitely wise teacher. One that speaks in trends and corrections, in volatility and calm, reminding you always that discipline is not learned through winning. It's learned through being awake. To the undisciplined, a losing streak feels like death. To the awakened, it feels like refinement. For every loss carries a message, not about the market, but about the mind that engaged it. The untrained trader sees failure as proof of weakness. The disciplined trader sees it as evidence of growth. Because only through discomfort do the illusions fall away. Only through pain do we meet the parts of ourselves that still cling, still doubt, still fear. Every drawdown is a conversation between who you are and who you are becoming. If you listen closely, it whispers, will you react or will you rise? You see, resilience is not just about recovering from loss. It is the art of remaining whole while you walk through it. It is not the hard shell of defiance, but the quiet strength of acceptance. Because the market is a cycle of expansion and contraction, and so are you. You cannot grow without compression. You cannot expand without first enduring the squeeze. Richard Dennis once trained a group of ordinary people and turned them into legendary traders. He gave them the same rules, the same systems, the same knowledge, yet their outcomes varied greatly. Why? Because discipline was never in the rules. It was in the relationship each person had with themselves when the pressure rose. The same strategy in two minds will yield two different fates. Because trading has never been about what you know. It's about what you can remain conscious of when emotion surges. Every decision is a test of alignment. Do you act from clarity or chaos, from patience or pride, from awareness or attachment? Discipline is forged not in comfort, but in these moments, When your system falters, when the candle spikes, when your plan collides with uncertainty. This is where you meet your truth. The ego will tell you to react, to prove yourself, to fight back, to recover. But the disciplined mind breathes. It waits. It observes. Because it understands that the market doesn't destroy traders. Their reactions do. Resilience begins when you stop needing the market to affirm your identity. When a loss no longer defines you. When a win no longer inflates you. When you can face both with the same steady mind, detached, aware, unshaken. Then, discipline becomes effortless, because you've transcended the duality of success and failure. It's not that you stop caring about results, it's that results stop controlling you. You act with precision, you follow your edge, and then you release the outcome. Because you understand that the outcome is not your responsibility. The process is. And in this surrender, paradoxically, your results improve. Because your actions are no longer driven by fear or greed. They are driven by alignment. Mark Douglas once said that consistent traders think in probabilities, not certainties. They act from expectation, not emotion. They know that any single trade means nothing, that the power lies in the series, not the instance. This is the essence of resilience. To hold faith not in the next candle, but in the entire ocean of data, experience, and edge that unfolds over time. Resilience is also adaptability. The wisdom to change when the environment shifts. Markets evolve, patterns decay, trends end. But the disciplined trader does not cling. They listen, they adapt, they flow. Because their identity is not tied to a strategy. Their loyalty is not to a method, but to awareness itself. Awareness, after all, is timeless. It doesn't depend on trends or systems. It moves through them, learning, evolving, transcending. And that is what true discipline is. Not rigidity, but fluid strength. Not resistance, but responsiveness. The bamboo survives the storm not because it is unbreakable, but because it bends. Likewise, the disciplined trader endures the chaos not by force, but by flexibility. When volatility rises, they don't panic. They breathe deeper. They trust the process. They let uncertainty test them. And in doing so, they grow unshakable. Because the deeper secret is this. Discipline is not about becoming emotionless. It's about becoming emotionally fluent. You learn to read your emotions like you read a chart, to see the patterns, the setups, the triggers. Fear becomes a signal of attachment. Greed becomes a sign of imbalance. Impatience becomes a call to presence. Every emotion, when seen clearly, becomes a teacher. That's what the masters understood. They didn't deny emotion, they danced with it. They felt every surge, every tremor, but they didn't lose themselves in it. They became the space through which emotion moved, not the motion itself. And that is what gives rise to the rarest form of power in trading. Calm intensity. A state where you are fully engaged, yet deeply centered. Alert, but not anxious. Focused, but not tense. It's the same state elite athletes speak of, the same presence monks describe, the same awareness great artists enter when creation flows through them effortlessly. That's the zone. Not a place of luck, but of pure alignment. In this state, discipline is no longer effort. It is your nature. You no longer have to try to follow your rules. Your rules arise naturally from who you've become. You no longer resist temptation. It passes through you like wind through still air. You no longer fear losses. You understand them as tuition. You no longer chase wins. You receive them as confirmation. Because the disciplined trader has transcended outcome. They trade not to win, but to express mastery. Their chart is their canvas, their edge, their brush, and discipline the art that gives meaning to every stroke. And when they lose, they study the painting, not to judge, but to learn. Because they know the masterpiece is not a single trade, but the evolution of their own mind. The ego seeks results. The soul seeks refinement. One is temporary, the other, eternal. And the more you walk this path, the clearer it becomes. Trading is not about money. It's about awakening. Every tick, every setup, every emotional wave, all of it designed to peel away illusion and reveal truth. You don't come to the market to master it. You come to the market so it can master you, until there's nothing left but awareness itself, quietly, patiently executing in harmony with reality. So when you lose, don't curse the loss. Bow to it, because it's showing you where your discipline still falters, where your ego still clings. It's revealing the edge you haven't yet mastered, not in the chart, but in your consciousness. And when you win, don't celebrate the profit. Celebrate the presence that allowed it. Celebrate the restraint, the patience, the inner stillness that aligned with opportunity at exactly the right time. Every trade, win or lose, is a reflection of your state of being. Change that, and you change everything. Gratitude is the highest discipline, not the kind you speak when you win, but the kind you feel when you lose, yet still see the lesson shimmering beneath the pain. Because when you reach a certain depth in this journey, you begin to understand something profound. Nothing in trading, not the profits, not the losses, not even the uncertainty, is against you. Everything serves your becoming. Every losing trade reveals a blind spot. Every missed move exposes impatience. Every drawdown tests your faith. Every surge of volatility invites you to practice stillness. The market, in its own mysterious way, is always conspiring to bring you back to balance. When you see that, gratitude becomes natural. You stop fighting reality and start flowing with it. You stop judging the journey and start honoring it. Because discipline without gratitude becomes dry, mechanical, a list of rules followed by fear. But discipline infused with gratitude becomes alive. It breathes, it listens, it grows. Gratitude turns loss into learning. It turns uncertainty into opportunity. It turns the ordinary act of trading into a sacred dialogue with the infinite. This is why the greats were never defined by their wealth, but by their wisdom. Jesse Livermore, though he won and lost fortunes, left behind a lesson far richer than any dollar amount, that the real tragedy of trading is not financial ruin, but spiritual blindness. To chase wealth without self-awareness is to live rich and die poor. But to trade with clarity, humility, and gratitude, that is true abundance. The disciplined trader wakes each morning knowing that their job is not to control outcomes, but to align with truth. To approach the market not as a hunter, but as a student. To meet each chart, each fluctuation, with curiosity rather than craving. Because the more you need from the market, the less it gives you. But when you approach it with stillness, gratitude, and clarity, the market opens itself like a book, revealing the story you were always meant to read. And in that story, you realize every trade you've ever taken, every high, every heartbreak has been leading you here. To this understanding, to this calm awareness, to this quiet knowing that success was never about predicting price. It was about mastering perception. You start to see that the true chart was never on your screen, It was within you, a chart of emotions, beliefs, reactions, and awareness. Every spike of greed, every dip of fear, every sideways drift of doubt, all of it part of the pattern. And discipline. Discipline was the trend line that guided it toward clarity. There comes a moment, somewhere deep in the journey, when the obsession fades. You stop checking the price every minute. You stop needing to prove you're right. You stop measuring progress in profit and start measuring it in peace. You begin to value the mornings you trade without anxiety, the evenings you log off without regret, the quiet satisfaction of following your plan, win or lose, and knowing that your integrity held. That is real wealth, because discipline, when it matures, becomes freedom. The freedom to act without fear, the freedom to rest without guilt, the freedom to lose without breaking and to win without boasting, the freedom to meet the market exactly as it is, uncertain, untamed, and yet perfectly balanced in its own design. And in that freedom, gratitude deepens. You begin to thank the losses that shaped your patience. You thank the waiting that strengthened your focus. You thank the false starts and the setbacks, because they burned away the arrogance that once blinded you. You thank the silence between trades, because it was there, in that silence, that you finally met yourself. Mark Douglas called it the zone, but in truth, it's not a zone. It's a state of being. It's the place beyond fear and greed, beyond win and loss, where only awareness remains. It's not something you enter. It's something you remember, because you were born in that awareness. The market didn't give it to you. It merely revealed it. When discipline reaches this level, it stops being an effort and becomes an expression of love. Love for the process, love for the patience, love for the truth. And love, when present, transforms everything it touches. You no longer force trades. You flow through them. You no longer see uncertainty as a threat. You see it as life itself, unpredictable, impermanent, but profoundly beautiful. Discipline is devotion to the craft, to the self, to the moment. It is the devotion of returning, again and again, to awareness, no matter how many times emotion pulls you away. Because that's all mastery truly is: returning. Falling, observing, rising, until falling no longer feels like failure, but part of the rhythm. And as the years pass, you begin to see that trading was never the destination. It was the mirror, a spiritual dojo, a teacher disguised as volatility. It trained you not just to manage risk, but to understand yourself. Not just to time entries, but to time emotions. Not just to read charts, but to read consciousness itself. You look back on the journey, the early confusion, the sleepless nights, the blown accounts, the endless searching for the perfect system, and you smile. Because you see now that it was never about the system. It was about the self. The market was never testing your setup. It was testing your spirit. And every test you endured refined you, reshaped you, redefined you. Until what remained was pure presence, a trader, not driven by outcome, but guided by awareness. That is the untold secret to trading discipline no one talks about. Because it cannot be taught in a book or shared in a seminar. It must be lived, experienced, embodied. It's not a technique. It's a transformation. Discipline is the bridge between who you were and who you are becoming. Every trade is a step across it. Some steps are painful. Some are effortless. Some feel endless. But if you stay aware, if you keep walking, one day you'll look up and realize you're no longer crossing the bridge. you've become it. And that's when everything changes. Because then, you don't just trade the market. You trade from the market, with the market, through the market. You move with its rhythm like breath, like tide, like time itself. You no longer chase wealth. You express wisdom. You no longer seek control. You embody balance. And in that space, that quiet, centered, timeless space, you find what every trader has been searching for since the first chart was drawn. Peace. The kind of peace that doesn't come from winning. The kind that remains when everything else fades. The peace that whispers softly, "You are enough. You have always been enough." That is discipline. That is mastery. That is freedom. And once you taste it, you'll never trade the same way again.